The NBA playoffs are where the biggest names in the sport solidify themselves as all-time greats. Racking up accolades in the regular season definitely gives you a boost, but ultimately your success on the biggest stage is what stands out the most in the eyes of fans and analysts, so it's vital for these guys to bring their A game this time of year. This season's playoffs are especially important for a few stars in particular, because they have a chance to do something big and change the narrative surrounding their name, which brings us to the topic of today's video. Today we'll be discussing 5 star NBA players in particular that I believe are under the most pressure this postseason. These are guys who have all the talent in the world, and the teams around them are built to make a deep run, but to this point have not been able to go all the way, partly because of their own personal struggles. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first star player under a ton of pressure this postseason is Chris Paul of the Phoenix Suns. This is Chris Paul's 18th season in the NBA, and he's one of the greatest players the NBA has ever seen play the point guard position, but he's never won a championship. He's certainly had opportunities, and has played on some great teams that had championship aspirations, but they've never been able to get the job done, and Paul himself has come up short on quite a few occasions individually. That has resulted in him being labeled a choker by some. After losing in the 2021 NBA Finals, it seemed as though his window for contention closed, and for a while this year, the Suns seemed to be headed in the wrong direction, but at the trade deadline, they went out and made the biggest move of the season by trading for Kevin Durant, and now they've got fresh new life, with arguably the most talented roster in the whole Western Conference. This is, without question, a championship or bust season for Chris Paul and the Suns, and everyone knows it. They're the Vegas favorites to make it out of the Western Conference. When going through national media outlet predictions, you will see them as one of the most popular choices to go all the way, and quite simply, Paul has to step up. He may not be in his prime any longer, but he's still one of the best floor generals in the league who can orchestrate an offense and make clutch plays with the best of them, and with Kevin Durant alongside him and Devin Booker also still there dominating, failure is not an option. The next star player under a ton of pressure this postseason is James Harden of the Philadelphia 76ers. Similar to Chris Paul, James Harden is another all-time great NBA player still in search of his first championship ring, and also like Chris Paul, this is one of the best opportunities Harden will have to accomplish that goal. During Harden's days in Houston, he led some historically great groups that several years posed as the biggest threat to the peak Golden State Warriors dynasty team, but ultimately, he was never able to get them over that hurdle. It's obviously a combination of bad luck being in a conference with a team as dominant as the Warriors were, and Harden's own shortcomings in big closeout games, and as is the case with the other players on this list, his shortcomings will always be held over his head until he achieves that ultimate goal. Harden may not be dropping 30 and 40 point games every night like he used to, but in his role with the Sixers, he's really embraced his ability to make plays for those around him, and was the league's leading assister this year as a result of it. He's also playing alongside a guy in Joel Embiid who is an MVP caliber player, and the two of them should benefit from each other's presence greatly. That combo in the pick and roll is as good as any. This is as good of a team as Harden has ever had around him, and the league is as wide open as it has ever been, with no team dominating above the rest. Speaking of the 76ers, Joel Embiid is also the next one up on this list for obvious reasons. Joel Embiid has been the MVP runner-up each of the last 2 seasons, and this year he is more than likely going to be named the MVP for the first time, so he's been as good as anybody in recent history, and yet the only thing that people are going to ever bring up regarding his accomplishments is his inability to advance past the second round of the playoffs to this point. Without a single appearance in the conference finals, and now winning an MVP to add to his resume, he is going to be under the microscope every game this year, because the best players are the ones expected to prove their greatness by leading their teams to the promised land. Are all of his prior shortcomings in the postseason his fault? No, not necessarily, but nobody ever wants to hear the excuses, because there are countless examples of guys overcoming adversity en route to a title. In prior playoff runs, Embiid had been dealing with injuries, he's had broken hands, broken faces, he's dealt with illnesses, but this year he is completely healthy and playing the best basketball of his life. He's got an elite playmaker in James Harden alongside him, Tyrese Maxey is an exciting young shot creator, and PJ Tucker was added to the squad this year specifically to bring some toughness and fight to the playoffs, so even though they're more than likely going to have to face a very strong Boston team in the second round, Embiid will be the reason why they win or lose that series. The next star on this list of players under the most pressure is the guy who won each of the last 2 MVP awards, Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is one of the greatest offensive forces we've seen, making plays as a passer at the center position that we've never seen before, and leading a top 5 ranked offense yet again this year. He's also in the MVP race yet again, and ultimately when you start to take home awards at the highest level as regularly as he has, the expectations rise exponentially, and Jokic is officially under the expectation of championship or bust. Jokic also still has no NBA Finals appearances, and the one time his Nuggets team did advance to the conference finals came in the bubble during a run where Jamal Murray was playing out of his mind. The Nuggets are the 1 seed this year in a wide open Western Conference, where no team is really sticking out above the rest, so if multiple-time MVP winners can't lead a deep run this year, then conversations are going to start to be had. He's been critiqued about his defensive struggles, and in prior playoff exits, teams have figured out ways to exploit those struggles on that end. So the pressure is not only him continuing to produce offensively at an elite level, but also to provide serviceable defensive effort. And finally, the last star player we'll be discussing on this list under a ton of pressure this postseason is Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics. Tatum is definitely a guy who has proven he can perform on the big stage, and last year he helped lead his Celtics team all the way to the NBA Finals, but it was in the finals that he really stunk it up, and with the Celtics back in contention again this year, Tatum will be looking to redeem himself. In the NBA Finals last year, he averaged just 21 points per game, shooting a miserable 36% from the field, and we all know he's capable of much better. The Celtics have been as strong as anybody in the East over the last 5 years, but they have not taken home a title yet in the Tatum era, and this year is as good as any of the opportunities they'll get to change that. They've dominated the regular season matchup with Philadelphia, Giannis Antetokounmpo may not be 100% healthy for the Bucks, and they should be able to handle anyone else who may be in their way, so if Tatum really wants to solidify his place as a superstar in this league, in that top tier of talent, then there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do so. Otherwise, he's going to be continued to be viewed in a tier below the rest, as was the case after last season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think is under the most pressure this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.